What's up guys, my name is Ryan, and with almost all countries open for tourism, I think we're all excited to travel some new destinations this year. So here's my top 10 places to visit in 2025. With tourism back to normal, 2025 is going to be a year full of travel. Whether you experience the dramatic landscapes of New Zealand or go cliff jumping in Greece, I hope you can all safely visit some new places this year. Let's start this video off in Slovenia. Of all the countries in Europe, I don't think there's a more compact country that offers just about every type of landscape you expect to find in Europe. From the capital city of Ljubljana, you can drive 1 hour and either be in the Alps or down by the Adriatic Sea. I spent some time in Slovenia this year, and it quickly became one of my favorite European countries. One of the most famous places in Slovenia is Lake Bled. It's a picturesque lake with an island that has a scenic church built on it. While we were there, we did a hike to this lookout and got some amazing views of Lake Bled and the surrounding area. One of my favorite places I visited in Slovenia was the river Socha. It's this incredibly clean river with clear turquoise water, and I had such a fun time swimming in it and riding down the current as I floated in the water. A unique experience you can do in Slovenia is explore the Postojna cave. To get into the cave, you get on this train that goes nearly 4 kilometers under the earth. I felt like we were riding into Gringotts Bank from the Harry Potter movies. Once you make it to the end, you can explore the cave. I mean, it's absolutely huge. Another one of my favorite features of Slovenia is its hilltop churches. They dot the landscape and create some of the most picturesque sceneries. One of the most notable ones is the Church of St. Thomas. It's perfectly placed on this hill, overlooking the area with the Alps in the distance. After Slovenia, we're going to head up to nearby Austria. If you love the Alps, picturesque villages, and idyllic scenery, Austria is your place. It has the charm and beauty of nearby Switzerland, but it's not nearly as expensive. One of the most famous places in Austria is Hallstatt. It's this fairy tale village built on the edge of a lake. When we went there, we took the ferry into Hallstatt, and it gives an incredible view from the boat. We had a great time just walking throughout the alleyways of this village. Now if you want to explore some of Austria's mountains, the Schafberg is an incredible peak to visit. Now to get there, you ride up on Austria's steepest train. I couldn't believe how steep it was. Now when we got to the top, it was super fun to explore. The views up here are unreal with all the lakes that surround this mountain peak. Now if you're feeling really adventurous, you can do the Skyladder Via Ferrata. It's located near the town of Gosau, which is about a 20-minute drive from Hallstatt. Now to get to the start, I took up a gondola and made the short hike to begin the Via Ferrata. It took me about 2 hours of climbing to finally reach the Skyladder. When I got there, I didn't realize how big it was. I was a little nervous to do it. As I started climbing, it was a little wobbly, but it was overall pretty easy, and you're always hooked in, so it's basically impossible to fall. After a few minutes of climbing, I made it to the end of the Skyladder. It was super fun. If you want to get the adrenaline going in 2025, this Via Ferrata is for you. Now afterwards, we're going to head to Africa to visit Namibia. Located in the southern part of the continent, Namibia is home to just otherworldly landscapes. If you're wanting to visit Africa for the first time, Namibia is a great option. It's one of Africa's safest countries, and its roads and infrastructure are rated the best in Africa. Now to travel to Namibia, we flew into the capital city of Windhoek, and then we rented a 4x4 truck and started our Namibia road trip. One of the most famous places in Namibia is Dedvli. It's this clay pan with dried tree skeletons that are believed to have died 700 years ago. There used to be a river in the area, but it dried up and the trees eventually died. And since the area is so dry, the trees have decomposed and remained frozen in time. It was just so surreal to walk amongst these ancient trees. Now overlooking the Dedvli is the Big Daddy Sand Dune. It's the tallest dune in the Sossusvlei area with a height of 325 meters. I wanted to hike to the top of it. We began by walking along the ridge of the dune next to Dedvli, and we were able to get views of the clay pan. As we got closer to Big Daddy, I was just amazed by the scale of the dune. After about an hour and a half of hiking, we made it to the top. We had the most incredible 360 view of the Namib Desert, and the landscapes just seemed to go on forever. Another one of the most iconic places in Namibia is Sandwich Harbor. It's where the Namib Desert meets the Atlantic Ocean. To get here, you basically need to go with an experienced driver since you're navigating through deep sand the whole time. It was a little nerve-wracking driving on the dunes, but it was such an adrenaline rush. Now my favorite thing that we did in Namibia was witnessing the desert elephants. There's only a few desert elephants in Namibia, and they have adapted to live in the harsh conditions of the desert. To see them, we went deep into the remote region of Damarland, and after an hour of tracking, our guide found a herd of 14 elephants. We spent the next few hours just observing them, and it was one of my favorite wildlife experiences I've ever had. Namibia's landscapes and wildlife are truly on another level. After, we're going to head to Asia to visit Vietnam. Located in Southeast Asia, Vietnam is an adventure and backpacker's paradise. One of the most impressive places in the country is Ban Giac Falls. It's located in the northern part of Vietnam, straddling the Chinese border. Bangkok is the biggest waterfall in Southeast Asia, and the scenery here is just absolutely insane with the iconic karst mountains in the background. Another amazing spot in Vietnam is Ha Long Bay. Located in the Gulf of Tonkin, Ha Long Bay is this incredible area made up of emerald water and thousands of limestone islands covered in lush vegetation. Probably the best way to experience Ha Long Bay is by taking a cruise, but I recommend at least doing an overnight cruise so you can witness Ha Long Bay during sunset and sunrise. One of my personal favorite places in Vietnam is the tea fields of Long Coc. It's one of the most picturesque places I've ever seen, with dome-shaped hills and perfectly manicured tea fields. If you're looking for an adventure, one thing you can do at Vietnam is the Ha Giang Loop. It's a several-day motorcycle route that takes you through the mountains of northern Vietnam. The scenery is absolutely insane. It looks like something out of a Dr. Seuss book. Definitely something to add to your 2025 bucket list. After, we're going to head over to Central America to visit El Salvador. From world-class surfing to stunning volcanoes, El Salvador has so much to offer. I have a special place in my heart for El Salvador because I lived here 10 years ago. Now, the capital of the country is San Salvador, and there are some cool places you can visit like the Centro Histórico. One of my favorite places in El Salvador is El Tunco. It's probably the most famous beach in the country and has amazing waves perfect for surfing. We came here for sunset and the scenery did not disappoint. Another incredible place in the country is the Santa Ana volcano. We hiked up the volcano's rim and it took us about an hour to reach the top. The landscapes up here were insane. Now, at the base of the volcano, there's this lake called Lago de Coatepeque, and the scenery here is also next level. I found this restaurant that had a diving board, and it was so fun to send some jumps into the lake. If you're looking for adventure in 2025, El Salvador is worth the visit. After, we're going to head back to Europe to visit Norway's Lofoten Islands. Lofoten is located in northern Norway, and even though it's in the Arctic Circle, it feels like you're on a tropical island with all the incredible beaches and fairly mild weather. We were here last summer, and the scenery was next level. One of my favorite places is the fishing village of Henningsvar. It's built on a few islands and it's home to one of the most scenic soccer fields in the world. One of the best beaches on the islands is Kvalvika. It's a decent hike down to the beach, but you're rewarded with some of the most incredible scenery. We came here for sunset and it was one of the best I've experienced. If you're into hiking, the trek to Reinebringen is worthwhile. It's probably the most famous hike in the Lofoten Islands. Now, to get to the top, we had to climb nearly 2,000 stone steps. You get a perfect panoramic view of the fjord, villages, and sea mountains. If you come during the months of June and July, this is an insane place to experience the midnight sun. We stayed up here for a good hour enjoying the sunset and other world reviews. If you're in Lofoten and are able to hike, you gotta come experience the scenery of Reinebringen. After, we're going to head to Greece to visit some of its islands. With over 6,000 islands, Greece has a lot to choose from. One of the most well-known islands is Santorini. It's home to whitewash houses and all the landscapes you expect to find on a Greek island, but I will say it can get very crowded. One of my personal favorite Greek islands is Milos. It has the classic whitewash houses, but a more relaxed vibe compared to Santorini. One of the most famous places on Milos is Zakynthos Beach. It's home to white, lunar-like landscapes, and there's so many places to cliff jump. There's this one iconic ledge that is a perfect place to do some dives and jumps into the sea. One of my favorite places on Milos was Kleftiko. It's this incredible bay with white rocks that come out of the sea. You can boat or hike into the area, and we had an incredible time just relaxing here. If you do boat into Kleftiko, you can also go to the nearby Sikia cave. It's one of the most unique places I've ever been. It's this cave with a collapsed ceiling that connects to the sea. There's a little beach that some people would ride up their dinghies to land on, and then they could explore the cave. I mean, the water was just some of the clearest I've ever experienced, and the boulders in the water created for one of the most beautiful settings I've ever came across. Now, I have to say my favorite Greek island is Zakynthos. I've been here several times now and I just keep wanting to come back. It's one of the most impressive locations I've ever been. From 1,000-foot white cliffs to the bluest water you've ever seen, Zakynthos has it all. The most famous place in Zakynthos is Shipwreck Beach. Back in the 1980s, a cargo ship from Turkey was carrying illegal contraband, and the Greek Navy chased them into this cove where it crashed. Over the years, the sand has built up around the ship and has created one of the most visually stunning locations in the world. You can boat into the beach, or you can also get a great view of it from the cliffs above. Another stunning place in Zakynthos is Mazithres. It's this massive rock formation on the Aegean, and you get a nice view of it from the nearby cliffs. We came here for sunset, and the sea was pretty rough, which turned up the water, giving it a milky color. It was such an amazing landscape, with a setting sun coupled with the greens of the pines and blues of the water. Greece's islands are some of the most spectacular on earth. After, we're going to head to French Polynesia to visit the island of Moorea. Known as the Pearl of the Sea, Moorea is one of the most beautiful places I've ever experienced. We stayed here several nights and it was just absolutely incredible. Now, to reach Moorea, you'll first fly into the island of Tahiti, and you can either take a ferry or another quick flight. Once you arrive on the island, there's just so much to do here. I think Moorea is home to some of the most spectacular mountains. They're just so jagged and unique looking. My favorite one was called Mount Mo'aroa, which translates to the Shark's Tooth. It rises 880 meters above the sea, and I totally get where it gets its name with its sharp, rigid appearance. Now if you're more into beaches, one of my favorite ones was the public beach Ta'ahiamanu. It's this really relaxing beach with sailboats and amazing scenery all around. It's a prime place to watch the sunset. Another great thing you can do on Moorea is go on a boat tour. We went on a tour and unfortunately it was really rainy, but it still was a great experience. We swam with black-tipped sharks and we went outside the reef and swam in the deep ocean. I mean, I couldn't believe how warm the water was. One of the main reasons people come to Moorea is to swim with humpback whales. If you come in between the months of August to November, you can swim with these gentle giants. After, we're gonna head to New Zealand. I think it's safe to say we all want to experience the scenery of New Zealand. It's a land full of fjords like Norway, beaches like Hawaii, and landscapes straight out of Middle Earth. New Zealand is made up of two main islands, the north and the south. Now to get to New Zealand, we flew into Auckland, which is on the North Island, and from there we went to one of my favorite places, Cathedral Cove. When I imagine New Zealand, this is one of the first places that come to mind. To get there, you can either hike or take a boat in. We had such a good time exploring this place. There's this cave archway that gives you the famous view of Cathedral Cove with the Te Hoho Rock. Now if you want to venture to Middle Earth, you can visit Hobbiton. It was the filming location for The Shire and the Lord of the Rings films, and you can take a guided tour of it. If you're looking for some epic adventures, you gotta head to New Zealand's South Island. It's home to Mount Cook, which is the tallest mountain in the country with a height of 3,724 meters. The drive to Mount Cook is arguably one of the most scenic in the world, since you have views of the incredible Southern Alps coupled with the glacier blue waters of the lake leading up to it. We did the hike to the base of Mount Cook. It was about a 10-kilometer trek, and I loved the bridges we walked on that crossed the glacial rivers. When we got to the lake at the base of Mount Cook, it was possibly the windiest place I've ever been. It almost blew my wife away. Now one of the most epic places you gotta visit in New Zealand is the Milford Sound. Located in the Fiordland National Park, the Milford Sound is possibly the most famous place in all of New Zealand, and after exploring it, I understand why. The Milford Sound is pretty isolated, and the closest town is Te Anau, which is about 2 hours drive to get there. The road is one of the most beautiful I've ever been on. The scenery reminds me of the fjords of Norway, but slightly more tropical. We saw some kia birds, which are the only alpine parrots in the world. They were seriously so beautiful. Once we arrived at the Milford Sound, we got on a boat that took us on a tour of the famous fjord. The views on the front of the boat were amazing as we headed into the fjord. The scale of this place is insane. The mountain walls rise straight up thousands of feet high. We came across several waterfalls cascading into the sound. Now after the boat tour, I really enjoyed just walking around the sound. There were some nice trails, and I liked this little coastal area that had smooth rocks and really unique vegetation that lined the shore. It was just so calming to watch the little waves roll in. For our final destination, we're going to head over to nearby Australia. If you like world-class beaches, tons of wildlife, and just good vibes, you gotta give Australia a visit. I spent some time there earlier in 2024, and I just absolutely loved it. One of my favorite regions in the country is Western Australia. It's home to some of the most pristine coastline I've ever seen. There's endless white sand beaches, crystal clear waters, and kangaroos just chilling around. I think the area around Esperance is particularly beautiful. It's home to some of the whitest sand in Australia and the world. Another place to visit in Australia is the Outback. The most iconic landmark in the Outback is the Uluru or Ayers Rock. It's a massive monolith that's made up of sandstone. Now if you want to see some of Australia's wildlife, a great place to go is Tasmania. It's a pretty big island located in southern Australia, and the main reason I came here was to see the wombats. They live in this area around Cradle Mountain, and we could go on these raised walkways, and there were several wombats grazing. It was so peaceful to watch them munch on the grass. Now my all-time favorite place in Australia is Lord Howe Island. I think it's one of the most perfect places in the world. It's located in the Tasman Sea, and you can get to Lord Howe by taking a 2-hour flight from Sydney. The island is just insanely beautiful. It's called the Hawaii of Australia, and after visiting it, I understand why. There can only be 400 tourists on the island at a time, and another interesting fact about Lord Howe is that it's the largest island ever to eradicate all its rats, which in turn has allowed the birds and wildlife to flourish here. One of the main reasons I wanted to go to Lord Howe Island was to visit Ball's Pyramid. It's the tallest sea stack in the world with a height of 572 meters. It's one of the wildest rock formations I've ever seen as it sits alone in the desolate ocean. Now to get to Ball's Pyramid, it was about an hour boat ride from Lord Howe Island. We boated around the entire sea stack, and I was just baffled by the scale of this place. I felt like Jack Sparrow discovering a treacherous island. After exploring Ball's Pyramid, we headed back to Lord Howe Island and got some incredible views on the way. While we were on Lord Howe, we had bikes to get around and we did some great hikes. One of my favorites was Malabar Kims. There were some incredible views of the sea cliffs, and then we walked on this ridge and got an amazing view of the whole island. And this place is paradise. Now for sunset, I love going down to Lagoon Beach to watch the sun light up the mountains of Lord Howe. Places don't get more perfect than this island. Well, that is it for my 2025 top 10. Let me know where you want to travel this year in the comments below. You can follow me on Instagram and TikTok at shirley.films. It's Ryan, and we will see you later.